Molnar is a Rails security expert who's exposed crypto flaws in major projects. He is the expert companies trust with their most expensive code, conducting penetration testing for companies worldwide. This is Greg's story. Okay, more controversial. I think this will be the last drama we'll cover. Ruby Central. It's more sure. Ruby Central. Okay. So recently, this September, you wrote about Ruby Centrals and Ruby Gem situation. Without going over the whole thing, what this episode teaches about open source governance?
This is a very heavy topic to be honest. I don't know because it's so I'm not really on either side. I think what Ruby Central did wasn't the best way to handle this, and not even a good way to handle this. But I think there are some nuances to the whole story which kind of justifies or can justify what they did. But I think the biggest question about this whole thing is who owns open source code? There is this whole Ruby Gems organization. They have bundle rubygems.org, uh, some other things to build gems, whatever. And there are people who started those projects 15 or maybe even more years ago. Some of them are even not with us, unfortunately, anymore. Some of them are not even in the Ruby ecosystem anymore. And they did the foundations, and then some other people worked on it, some contributors contributed code. Who owns that? That's one big question. Who owns the source code of, or actually, no, the source code is not owned by anyone. That's actually an easy answer because somebody can just fork it. It's for anybody. But see, who owns that GitHub organization? Who is it? Because there were multiple people on it, and some of them decided to remove the others and now claim ownership. So that's what's not really defined anywhere. And if you look at from Ruby Central's perspective, they removed people who they paid in the past to work on those gems. So they are like, we are not paying you anymore. You are not doing work on these projects anymore. So why would you need to have access on them? If you want to contribute, you can still contribute. It's just that you cannot merge. You need to go through the same review process as everybody else. So I don't know. It's an interesting situation, and you're right. It raises some good questions about open source governance. Who owns what? So that's interesting times for sure.
If you would have a chance to lay down a framework for them for open source governance, what would you tackle first? What would you do, or at least what would be the idea of the how are you gonna tackle that? It's complicated. It's not an easy. I never thought of it until it happened recently. I don't know which way to approach it, or how to approach it. But if you would have a chance to do it, what would you do?
Very good question. I think it's a very difficult problem because I don't think democracy works well in this sense because who are let's say we would say okay, let's elect who is going to own Ruby Gems and Ruby Central in the future. Who is eligible to vote? Is it people who used to be Ruby developers but they do Elixir now, and they do Rust, or is it somebody who just started to learn Ruby and they will be part of the Ruby community for the next 20 years, or is it someone who does? What are the requirements for somebody to be eligible to vote? Right? Who's actually a member of the Ruby community? I have a Ruby passport, but does that make me a member of the Ruby community? Somebody who's eligible to vote? You don't have a Ruby passport. Are you somebody who's eligible to vote? So it's like, how do we even define that? Who is the Ruby community? These are all unanswered questions.
You think Matscat should involve in this, into politics?
Yeah, I don't think he wants to be involved in this. But maybe that would be the way forward. Just say, yeah, Ruby Gems is a core part of the whole Ruby ecosystem. Maybe the Ruby core team should own the code. But I also think because Ruby Gems as a service is really relied on the code and on bundler making bundler being compatible and working with the Ruby Gems service. I think from a community perspective, from like a user perspective, I feel much better if it's in the same hand. So people who run the service, they also own the source code. And by own, I mean they have access and they can merge changes. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want, to make sure that I, as an end consumer, can access gems whenever I need them.
Would be a ideal step.
Yeah, but that's what we have at the moment because they took ownership. But obviously, some people are upset about that, which is, it's, I don't know who's right and who's wrong. I think, I also think that pretty much everybody has good intentions in the story, or maybe not everybody, but I think Ruby Central has good intentions. They just want everything to be more professional and better governed, better handled. Because this is the thing, like we don't even know. Do you know who owned before Ruby Gems? Do you know who's responsible running Ruby Gems at all? Do you know which people have access to the gems you install? We don't know that. Nobody knows that. That should be actually public information. You go to rubygems.org and you should see, okay, this person has access to the services Ruby Gems run on. Ruby Centra, the whole board kind of been changed in the past couple of years, and they hired a new person, Marty Holt, to become the director of open source or something. And I think that's why we see all these changes because now they want to now they want to make everything more professional. I think, but they didn't really issue. But they issued some statement, and that's what they say in the statement basically that they just want to be more professional about handling access and everything because they want to secure more funding. But if you ask a company to give you $100,000, they might ask, okay, how do you? Can you show me how do you handle access to these services? Do you have your policies in place? Do you have contracts with these people? Do you know who these people are? Or is it just someone like Greg Molnar from the internet? Or do you know his actual legal name? If he actually does something malicious, then you can get a hold of that person and make them responsible for their act.
Hopefully, we will sell it soon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, time heals everything. And the good thing is there is no, other than the public outcry or upset, there's no issue. You can still install your gems. Everything's operational, no problems. The question is just, yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen with ownership, and that's what needs to be resolved. But the service is up and running, so that would be the biggest concern. What if it shuts down? Then you can't deploy because you can't bundle your gems.
You think there's chance to happen?
I don't think there's a chance that happen, but you never know. That's another interesting thought experiment. Let's say they would have handled this differently and they fork. They say, okay, we fork bundler, we fork Ruby gems, and then somehow we try to notify the community, but it's difficult. I'm 100% sure people who use Ruby, 80% of them has no idea about this whole drama. It's the 20% who actually hangs on the internet and goes to Twitter and Blue Sky and whatever and Reddit who knows about this. But there are a bunch of developers who never go to social media and who have no idea this whole thing happened. And let's say in 3 months' time, so we have a new bundler which is run by Ruby Central. They rename it to, I don't know, the best bundler. And then people like you and me, because we know about this, we know, okay, if I want to use rubygems.org, I use this new gem to install my gems. But not everybody does. And what if the bundler team says, okay, we need to implement some changes. And those changes are breaking changes with rubygems.org because the service is run by someone else and it's not going to work together. And then all the people who don't even know about this whole drama and change, they just try to bundle and, oh, why are my gems not installing? And then they have a headache and then they try to figure out what to do and maybe they have a deadline and they are suddenly like, what the fuck is going on? I can't deploy my app. And then you cause issues for people who have nothing to do with this whole issue. So I don't know what would have been the correct solution. I think that would have been less public outcry or drama for sure if they just fork. Probably some people would have tried to steal the pot even then, but it would be less of an issue, I think.
In one of your blogs, you wrote a quote: "A tide lift up all boats." That's really poetic. Can you elaborate more on this beautiful mantra? And I think it's needed these days.
Yes, so that's actually not from me. It's not from the person who I'm going to say it's from him because he always tells me, Greg, that's not from me. I just quoted that. It's from, the short Ruby newsletter, Lucian Ginda. So I heard this from him because I think what happened is probably he included some of my content in something or some in the newsletter or something. And I say, oh, thanks for promoting this, and he said, hey, come on, tide lifts all the boats. If we support each other, then it's gonna be better for everybody. And actually, when he told this, I'm like, fuck, this guy is so fucking right because why would I not have another Rails developer to get better or with what he does or have more work than he already has or have more success with his company or with side projects than what he has currently? If he has more success, I will have more success as well in the future, probably, because the community will grow. The demand for Ruby and Rails people will grow. So it will mean more money for everybody because the bigger the community, the more widely used Rails, the bigger demand for developers, the more money we can charge. So at the end of the day, if we elevate each other, it has to elevate all of us.
It makes sense. We need it these days because if we all of us do this to each other, we'll all rise above everyone else. And all this kind of, as mentioned, the 20% people on Twitter talking about negativity, either on Ruby and Rails, those will be the sink in the bottom, and the rest who will support each other will lift on top. I think we need it badly these days.
Definitely, definitely. And the more we promote Ruby and Rails, it's just better for everybody. So, and yeah, it's just, I think the bigger the community, better it is for everybody. That's why I'm super happy for every events, and I think we should have more. Although now I really hope it will be still, we have a lot of conferences now, which is great. I love it, but I really hope it's going to work out for everybody. Because if it doesn't work out for the first person financially, then it's it might discourage others from organizing conferences, which would be a shame because they are amazing for community building. So that's why I'm always happy when I see new conferences popping up. People are organizing more meetups. More companies are starting to use Ruby and Rails. I think it's just great because the community grows. It's just better for everybody.
Absolutely. If I'm starting a yours app right now, today, at what point I should focus on security, or should security enter my brain? Is it from line one? Is it when I have users, or when I already have MVP?
Have it in your mind. Have it in from first day, from day one, from the first line. But don't over engineer it. So don't, and also don't premature optimize. Like if you think that, of course, do the basics from the get go because it's just easy. But if something is really difficult, don't go for SOC 2 compliance on day one, for instance, because you don't have any customers. Why would you need it? You only need it if you have enterprise customers, anyways. But of course, try to do everything which is easy from the beginning, but don't do the hard things until it makes sense to do the hard things, because if the business might never go anywhere, and then what's the point?
What is your Rails app ceremony? Are there any security gems that you install before you write any code?
Uh, yes. Uh, Brakeman or Spectre. Actually, if it's a Rails app, I add Brakeman because one thing I want to change in the next version of Spectre is not really CI friendly. So the output is more for if you just do a code audit. And I want to change that. So for now, if it's a Rails app, I usually add Brakeman because it's just super easy to add. It saves you some headaches. Then also rate limiting, which is now you don't need a gem because I used to add rec attack all the time, but now there is the built-in rate limiter, which is sufficient for most apps. And those are the two main things which you should start to use from the beginning. And also bundle audit, which you don't need to install. I think bundle audit is maybe you need to install it as a gem.
I think
Yeah, I
so.
think yeah. That's not part of core bundle. So yeah, bundle audit. That's another one which I I think which you should, and I installed that as well at the beginning.
When you talk about your securities in one of your blogs, you mentioned 50% of security can be automated. Which 50% is that? And what's the absolute uh, human required eyes?
Well, the 50% is static code analyzing, dependency management, scanning for secrets and whatnot, which is that all of that you can automate and put it on your CI. And the other 50% is what's actual things you do in your code, which is hard to find hard to catch by static code analysis, like authorization, business logic issues. Also, this whole static code analysis doesn't really cover AI related things if you have any LLM power features.
Can you come over that? What do you mean by that?
Uh, what I mean by that is, for instance, if it's a SQL injection, you can do it. Static code analysis is kind of easy to do because you just analyze the code. But the LLM integration is you cannot write any scanner or anything to find issues with your integration. It's more manual. You need to actually manually look at it and think about the potential security concerns and make sure that you are not having any issues.
I'm curious from your work, when you work with different clients, were all clients they have a suite test testing almost all features, or some clients they don't have test at all, and that would that change their behavior? Like if there is like the one who does have more tests, they have no vulnerability; they will have less tests, they have more vulnerability.
That's actually a good question. So if it's a Rails app, I don't only test Rails apps. I test other stacks as well. If it's a Rails app, I always ask them to send me the Rails stat output to give me an idea to estimate the size of the application. And that gives you the number of test lines as well, which I never look at actually. But it would be from now on, actually, I should monitor this because it's a good question. I have no idea. It might not correlate at all because you might write tests for your business logic and to make sure the app behaves the way you intend it to behave, but you might still write a test for an incorrect behavior from a security perspective. Or you might not think about an edge case, so you don't write a test for that because it's an edge case and that can lead to a vulnerability. So if you use the LLM to, if you let a user interact with an LLM, and based on that interaction you generate any code, then you should definitely have some safeguards, and you should probably use a sandbox because I am almost 100% sure it can be manipulated to do things which you don't intend it to do.
Even it has a clear roadmap on exactly what's supposed to do.
Even then, you cannot. It's like it's like a human. You can social engineer them, and you can always find ways.
Have you tested that? Have you been able to penetrate into it?
I test AI implementations, and I always find issues. Sometimes bigger ones, sometimes smaller ones.
I'm sure you've seen debug pod, GitHub, right? Yeah. So let's say this Monday, and you woke up in the morning and you found about 42 gems. Debug pod said, "Okay, please update this thing." How do you decide which one you should update its security versus it's nice to have?
Security one you have to upgrade for sure, and then the rest, yeah, I don't like that bot, and I don't use it because it's just too much noise. You you can configure it to be better, but by default it's a lot of noise. Every patch release and every minor release is bugging you. And sometimes with minor releases, I think it doesn't always make sense to upgrade. You might wait until until like three minor releases were released, or if it's a patch release and that's the only time when you upgrade, unless you have a bug which was fixed in one of the minor releases. So I think if you are my workflow is to use bundle audit for the security releases and then upgrade those immediately because it's a very important. Not even those. So sometimes there are security issues which don't affect you. Then you might say, yeah, I don't want to upgrade because usually it's easy to upgrade because it's only the patch only fixes the vulnerability. But if it doesn't and if it can cause issues for you, you might say, yeah, I'm not going to upgrade because it doesn't affect me. But my workflow is use bundle audit, update the security ones, and for actual updates of the gems, like new versions, like have once a month, you have an upgrade day or 2 days or whatever. Then you go through your dependencies, you check what has a new version, and then you decide which one to upgrade, and you do the upgrade. So you continuously keep them up to date.
It's a non-stop work, like taking care of your application update, just make sure it works correctly. This will lead me to a question about Rails philosophy. I'm sure maybe you heard about this recently happen in September about NPM ecosystem had another supply chain attack. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
And they known as Shai Hulud, I think, incident. So Rails has been relatively safe. Are we lucky, or it's better designed?
But that's not really Rails, it's more like Ruby gems. So I think what that issue was is the maintainers didn't have 2FA enabled, and then somebody got access to their account on the registry, and then they were able to push a new release of the library with malware. And I think the reason why we also have sometimes issues like that, but no big gem was hijacked for a long, long time. I don't even remember when was the last big gem hijacked. And Ruby Gems has a really interesting new feature, which I love. I don't know how, or maybe it's not that new anymore. Is that if you have a certain number of downloads on the gems you published, on the gems you have access to publish, you have to have 2FA enabled, which kind of mitigates this problem because even if someone the problem, I don't know if this was the case with the npm, but the way this usually happens is somebody have an email address they use on GitHub and on npm and Ruby gems, and it's with their own domain which they purchased 15 years ago, and then they forget to renew the domain. So somebody malicious notices this, they register the domain, they create an email address, they get a password reset email to the address, and they have access to your Ruby Gems account. And then they can publish all the gems which you have access to. To mitigate this, you need 2FA, because then even though they have the password reset and they have the access to the email account, they still don't have the 2FA code, so they can't access your account. And I think that's probably one of the things which saves us from issues like this. I don't think on npm they have mandatory 2FA for maintainers. Probably from this situation, they learn that they need to do that.
Yeah, I think it was about related to security issue about I think as you mentioned, he implemented malware, and I was able to extract all API tokens, keys, Google accounts information, the credential, lots of accounts. I think over 500 uh, package have been affected by that, which is slowly they count about over 2 million people impacted.
So they probably hacked someone at NPM.
Yes,
Aye,
was one
interesting.
package was hacked and was able to get inside it, and then be able to put malware, and this malware goes to check on other packages, and from that package starts to spread around, and that person was the hacker was able to extract all this information, all password, all base API keys from different companies. It was well designed because I think the initial package was like kind of security, the security issues a little bit weak.
Interesting. Yeah, probably they infected a security package which was used by NPM, and that's how they got into the whole system. Which is actually a good, an interesting thing. So yeah, all the gems, Ruby gems relies on should have some extra security measures.
I think yeah, we should. From here, how about Rails convention over configuration philosophy, which I like. I make it easy. I think that's one of the reasons I get Rails. Does that make it more secure? It creates predictable attack vectors.
I don't think it creates predictable attack vectors, but it's really good for security because a lot of things you don't even need to think about, and it's all solved for you. For instance, the secret injections, it's a very, very small attack surface. Only a few APIs of active record are prone to secret injection. And those are by design. And though if you use those, you probably know that I shouldn't pass user control the value to these methods directly. Our XSS is quite well solved. Uh, Also with this herb, what Marco's project accesses will be probably pretty much completely gone from Rails if what he imagined is gonna become reality. So there are a lot of things in the framework which are done for you, which you don't even need to think about. But this is good and bad at the same time because this leads to Rails devs thinks, oh, I don't need to think about security because the framework does everything for you. The framework does a lot for you, but there is still some some things which cannot be done by the framework, like authorization. It's still your responsibility because that's a business logic related thing. It's the framework cannot do that for you. You have to define your authorization rules and define who can access what.
How about authentication? Do you think we should have Rails come up with full fledged authentication system?
That's a good question. I think the problem with authentication is it's everybody needs a different flow for registration. Everybody has different requirements for authentication, and that's why a unified, generalized solution is not easy to pull off. But what Rails gives you is amazing helpers. So it's super easy to build the custom thing you need with Rails, and that's what matters. It's also if you want a more fully fledged solution, you can just go with device, which comes with a good default setup. It also has there is another gem called device security maybe or something or paranoid or whatever, which adds some extra security features on top of device. If you don't want to think about anything, just have something quick up and running, then that's your solution.
You mentioned Herb. You said it will help a lot in terms of the Rails security. Can you give me more information about that? What do you mean by that?
It would help with XSS because what Herb is, it's a context aware HTML an ERB parser. So your ERB knows about the more about the context, and for instance with the what Marco has in mind, I don't know if he will be able to implement all of these things, What he has in mind is that because whenever you call the link to method, then Herb could flag that, hey, you are calling this with the user supplied value, but not Herb, reaction view actually, because Herb is just the parser. But reaction view, or maybe it's not going to be reaction view, maybe it's going to be another, because it's like a whole ecosystem. It's going to be another part of it, and that can just flag up for you what Brakeman does currently, but you wouldn't need to use Brakeman. You would just see it in the browser when you open the page in development and see, hey, are you sure that this value is coming from the user? Are you sure it's safe to output here because it's unescaped? And then obviously you're gonna deal with it, otherwise you will see the bloody warning all the time.
You finish your conferences Python.
But yeah,
I think the conference we met was here in Toronto, Raise Word 2024. And this year you want to raise Word Amsterdam, Roku, and Friend RP. For an independent consultant like yourself, is this networking, learning, or marketing?
both, all of them. You market yourself because that's how people gonna know you next time when they see you. I also give conference talks when I have something to talk about, so that's really good for marketing. Networking definitely because you meet a lot of people, and then next time when they need help with security, probably they will think about me, or hopefully they will think about, oh yeah, I remember I talked to this guy at this conference. Let's look him up. And yeah, what was the third? It was networking,
Learning.
marketing, and learning. Yeah, for learning, yes, in a sense, because I love to talk. It's really good to talk to other people because everybody has a different perspective on things, and sometimes you, if you only have your own perspective on the world, then you, I think it's not great. And I learn about new tools, new tricks, new a lot of new things during these talks. New use cases of Ruby and Rails. So I think it's just amazing. Also with AI, because it's a new thing, and I look at it from a always from a security perspective. All the AI talks and how people use AI give me ideas how I could hack them, and then how could we then prevent that somebody malicious does the same thing.
So how much percentage of your clients come from conferences?
Pretty high. I don't know, pretty high. Like well, to be honest, the last 2 years all of my work came from connections. People I worked with, people I met at somewhere somehow, or people who saw me online somewhere somehow.
One other thing you mentioned in one of your blogs, you said, I think was doing Ruby Central, face-to-face discussion is when it comes to in our extreme online world, is that's why conferences still matters.
Yeah, definitely. The problem with online communication, you write a tweet, I write a tweet, and then you write an answer. And then I write something, then you write something. For one, I don't see your facial expression. It's not a discussion, right? And it's kind of one way, and then another way, and then another way, and another way. It's not like a fluid conversation between two people. Even just jumping on a call is much better than that if you have a disagreement to discuss. So I think yeah, face to face definitely needed. It's so much different to talk to people in real life. Also, if you talk to someone while you eat or you drink, it's a different experience. You realize, oh shit, he's a bloody human like me, right? It's not just a handle. Also, sometimes it's just a handle. You don't even see a picture of somebody. They have a drawing or whatever. So it's like, is this really a human? Of course it is, but you don't. Your brain doesn't register it the same way as if you meet someone in person.
Yeah, you take the text the way you feel about it, not the way it was intended. That's miscommunication.
Exactly. Also, like jokes or being sarcastic, it never comes through the fucking internet. But in person, you see the person is joking because they already have a half smile right on their face. Like you can't be serious, it on your face. So it's I think it's much harder to get offended in person than on the internet.
You said in the state security in Rails, the blog post that you wrote about in Rails World here in Toronto 2024, when you went on the stage, who you were talking to? General developers or the CTO or the business?
Mostly developers. That talk was developer focused mostly, but not just junior, any level actually, because all of those things I think very important for any, regardless of your level of experience.
So what also could be the like the business if there's a business in the crowd? What would they get from that?
Good question. I don't think we had any business kind of person in the crowd, but for those people as well, I think it could have the message is important for those people as well, because I think if you care about security, then Rails is one of your best option because it comes with great defaults, comes with great tooling, and it's anything you need for security can be somewhat easily solved in the Rails ecosystem. In some other ecosystems, it's everything is a pain and it just takes twice as long to have something done than in Rails.
Have you tried any other platform recently, like JavaScript frameworks or PHP or what's the other one? Python?
Not for development, but I test applications in other stacks, and I wouldn't say they are worse or it's just even the testing of client-side applications and JavaScript is more difficult than like the traditional server-side generated Rails apps. And because of that, it's more difficult to find issues, which means they might have more issues. It's not as easy to test because of all the extra complexity they introduce. And probably that's why it's also not easy to mitigate certain issues because you already deal with a bunch of complexity and you need to solve something in that whole space. It's not always as easy as if it's something simple. Simple is the easiest to change. If something is simple, it's simple to change. If something is complex, it's not easy to change.
In the same post, I think you mentioned about how we're really scared getting on stage. Which one more scarier is the exams, that OSSP exam that you've taken or speaking at a Rails board? And what was it like to present into that audience?
Definitely this one was scarier. Actually, it was a very funny experience. So we had two stages. I was on the second stage, and I was really happy about it because I don't want to be on the big stage, right? Because it's a big crowd. And then I look at the schedule, and it's a Kamal talk on the big stage. I'm like, oh, great! People are really interested in Kamal, so I will have a small crowd. It's gonna be nice and cozy. And then the people start to come. And it's like all seats taken, one row standing folks, other row standing folks. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why do I have such a big crowd? This is crazy. And the MC asked me, oh, I didn't know you're that popular. I'm like, I'm not popular at all. I don't know why we have so many people here. So I got really nervous before I started the talk. But once I started, it was actually everything went away. And it was also really uh it was a big endorphin bump. I think it was like a drug actually. See, when I before the talk I talked to the MC, oh, I'm not gonna give any more talks because this is just crazy. I'm so nervous, it doesn't worth it. And then when I finished, I was like, oh, I wanna do this again. This was so great. It's like a drug.
Are you gonna give more talks?
Yes, when I have something to talk about, definitely. I gave a talk at Friendly RB this year as well. That was fun.
And we assume the next talk will be more about security and using LLM Rails application.
That was actually at Friendly. That was talk about. It was security in the age of AI because it changes a lot of things.
How was the feedback? The people react to that?
I think it was good. I think people enjoyed it.
Big crowd like Rails World.
No, no, it's only 110 people. It's much smaller, but you still get the nerves. It's not that much, and it's also the venue is different. It's a theater, so you have the lights which kind of blindens you. You don't see the whole crowd, which helps with the nerves, right? Because then you don't realize how many people you are talking to. At Railsford, I was out in the open, so I saw the big crowd. It's much more nerve wracking.
From your Rails observation, because you are in Europe, okay, uh, you see Rails community from the stage across Europe. What is the mood? Are they growing, sinking, shrinking, or transforming?
I think in Europe we are growing. I would say almost for sure. Or maybe I just didn't know we have such a big community. But you go to these conferences and then you realize that you talk to people and then you ask, oh, what do you do for work? And then they mention a company you never heard of before. And it's just I have so many such cases when people say, oh yeah, I work for this company and I never heard of them. So I think we have more and more companies using Rails in Europe, and it's definitely I'm almost sure it's growing. Hard to say because obviously I don't have actual hard data, but uh, based on my experience talking to people, I think it's actually growing in Europe, which is great. But I think it's not that new. It's so when I started with Rails in like 2010ish, when I started to learn it, and 20ish when I started to work only with Ruby and Rails. And back then it was more like in the UK, Germany, but Germany has an interesting market. I think they speak German mostly. So as a non-German speaking person, I don't think I have a good perspective of how big they are. And then the Netherlands already had some companies, a little bit of French, a little bit in French, but that's it. That's all I saw back then. And then nowadays it's like a bunch of Spanish companies, pretty big in France, like Poland. I don't know since when is it so popular in Poland, but I remember back then I didn't really realize that Rails is so big or Ruby it's so big in Poland. So I think it was in the past 13 years where it grew. It's not like a sudden growth recently.
Why Ruby and Rails growing in popularity now in Europe compared to, let's say, 10 years ago?
Maybe because well, I think if you have companies became more successful, so they grow, they need more people, so there are more job opportunities, more people are willing to learn the language because they see, oh yeah, there are job openings. And I also believe that you don't really need to sell Rails and Ruby to a developer. If you tell them you can learn this, just have a look at it and you can learn this and work with this. Almost everybody is gonna say, oh yeah, I want this because it's an easy sell. I think it's so much fun to use Ruby and Rails. So what you need is more companies using it, so you have more opportunities for people to work with the tech. And probably that's what changed more. And the reason companies might choose it because it's super fast to develop with Rails. You move really quickly, which is important these days.
Is the European Rails scenes different from the American one? When I say American, I refer to North America and Latin America.
Good question. Probably it is. 'Cause I think there are a lot of differences between America and especially the United States and Europe. Like you tell an idea to European person, they will find 5 reasons not to do it. You tell the same idea to an American, and tell you 5 things why do it. Just yeah, oh amazing, let's get it done. So they are very enthusiastic and they love to experiment and they love to do things and they are very optimistic about everything. Whereas in Europe, we are much more pessimistic. And I think probably that's why the market is a bit different because we don't have that many companies who want to be unicorns or want to grow like massive. It's more like more humble, I think, over here. Everybody just wants to get to a certain size and then it's all good. Whereas in the States, everybody wants to be the next Facebook or the next Amazon. They have much higher expectations and goals than here.
Which one is better? Which one is healthier?
I don't know which one is better for everybody or anybody. I think it's different for everybody. I'm at my current state in life and my current age. I would say I want the slow path, and I don't want to be a billionaire in 3 years. I would rather choose to be a millionaire in 5 years. So I think slow growth is better and not working all the time. Of course, it's different when you are young. Even when I was 25, I spent 10, 14 days in front of a computer on some days because I was really hooked into solving those problems and learning new things. But now I'm much rather spend some time with my kids. Now I still have periods and I'm like, oh, I'm hooked on this thing. I need to solve this. I need to figure it out. But not as much anymore.
And for the young folks, what do you think they should do? They should leave Europe and they leave the village, small towns, and all the big cities in Europe and head to States, to North America.
I think if you are young and if you can do it, you should definitely travel and move somewhere else than where you live at that moment. Because you will learn. I lived a few countries in my life, and you always learn something from the culture. You always learn something about yourself because there are challenges, pain, problems to solve. It builds character, in my opinion. So definitely, if you can go and yeah, if you can go to the States because that's a complete culture shock. It's a very different culture, so you will experience something which you won't in Europe, and then you can come back and use that experience and build something here, or stay there if you like it more over there.
Big millionaire. Why would go back to Europe? Just stay in the state.
Exactly, exactly. But I think it's dependent on personality. I'm more of a village person. I never in my life really like big cities, to be honest.
Why?
I don't know. I don't like the crowd. I like nature. I like quiet. I don't like traffic. Here, the biggest noise pollution is the cricket. Whereas in the city, so I went to Bucharest, which is a quite big city for friendly RV, and my Airbnb was on a main road, and I was because the conference starts at 10. I was planning to sleep in. It was like a 10 minutes walk, less than 10 minutes walk from the place. Like I can sleep till 9:30, right? I wake up, quick shower, I get to the venue. Every morning at 7, the police started to whistle control the traffic. I couldn't sleep because it was like whistling from 7 a.m. And when I came home, I was like, oh, it's so good to wake up to the rooster and to the crickets and to the birds. I much prefer this than the bloody police whistle.
I want to focus on the future visions. You wrote about Rails 8. I want to tie this to no build. Rails has no build, has transpile philosophy. And with the MPE recent supply chain that happened recently this month, is fewer dependency actually safer?
Yes and no. It's that the front end dependencies are, but it depends because you can still have a vulnerable package on your front end, even though you use no build because you still load JavaScript from the package registry and it doesn't affect your backend dependency.
But now here we are now in Rails. We'll talk about this and also talk about Ruby Central only and Ruby Gems. If all this collapse, what's gonna
Well, you're gonna have two bad days or a few bad days. The problem with Ruby gems, if it would go down, is you can change your gem source easily in your gem file. That's easy peasy. But all your dependencies, the dependencies of your dependencies, needs to be on that gem source. So you either need a complete mirror of the Ruby gems registry, or you are doomed. and maybe some of your dependencies actually pinning something from the whole dependency management system is a bit complicated, I think, and can have so many issues. And it's a massive trust-based system because you trust that when Greg releases a gem, he's not doing anything malicious. Of course, Ruby gems run some scanners on it, but I'm 100% sure people can bypass those scanners if they want to. There are probably ways to still deploy some malicious code on Ruby gems. So yeah, it's an interesting part of the whole ecosystem.
So it's good to have a few dependencies. I think that's what the recent takes from HH or Basecamp Manager, that they try to create their own gems or plugin internally.
That's true, but it's easy for 37 signals because they already have the resources. They can say that, oh yeah, we are shipping a new app, we can spend 3 months on it. But if you just enter the market, you're gonna get stuff done quickly. That's the power of the whole Rails ecosystem. You need authentication. Okay, here is device. I plug it in. You need object search. Oh, here is Ransack. I just pull it in. I build the form super easy. Or you need, I don't know, whatever else. A bunch of things. Oh, there's a gem for that. I don't need to spend 2 weeks to write my own gem. I can just use someone else's work. So I think as a new greenfield project or a small company, it's not as easy. But yeah, if you don't, I agree. For something small, don't put in a dependency. Try to solve it yourself. But in many cases, you save a bunch of time by using someone else's solution.
You wrote a book, Secure Code Review for Rails Developers. Who need this overconfident senior or an eager junior?
Everybody, to be honest. It's a very short and simple book, and it's more about this whole mindset, which we already talked about. That it's you should always, when you do code review, you should always put on your hat, which is the hat, which is your malicious actor, and oh, how could I make this code do something unintended? And I use a few examples from real life vulnerabilities where people just overlooked issues and how easy it is to overlook things, even at big companies like GitLab.
Use it as well. Like, I mean, the examples come from GitLab.
Yeah, there are some examples which are coming from, let's say, GitLab, which is a quite big company with great engineers, but even great engineers overlook sometimes things.
Let's think about it. Take us 5 years forward from now. What security problems will Rails developer will be dealing with that they are not even think about it today?
That's a really good question. No idea, but I'm sure there will be something new. Who would have thought 8 years ago that we'll deal with AI related issues? No, but even actually even 3 years ago when I was 2 years ago when I was giving my talk at Toronto, it was like this whole AI thing were not as big as now, and I wasn't looking into AI issues as much as nowadays.
What dent are you trying to make in the Rails security?
Hmm. That's a good question. I don't really think about that, to be honest. Like, what my biggest thing is, I try to educate people and just open their eyes to security and just make people think more about security. And then if I can achieve that, then it's great. And hopefully people will care more about it than they do. Which is, it's also, yeah, it needs to be pragmatic because, as I said, if you're a startup and you don't have any funding, you don't have money, probably security is not your top priority. But you should still do the easy stuff and you should still not forget about it. And once you have the resources, then start pay attention to it. But yeah, if I can achieve that more people think about security and more people care about security in the Rails ecosystem, then that would be great.
Your book, one of are you trying to do so?
Yes, the book should help. I'm also doing a course which is like much bigger and larger, about the whole security landscape in Rails apps, how certain vulnerability classes affect the Rails application, how to mitigate those issues.
Format is video.
It text and video as well. The text version is basically done. It's also released, so people can already buy it. I'm just waiting on feedback, which I've already got actually. So in the next couple of weeks, I should record the videos and then it should be all done. And then it's video and text as well. Because I think what I notice is there are people who like text content, there are people who like video content. So I think the best way to satisfy everybody is to do both.
What are the challenges making such a course?
Uh, Recording videos is a big challenge for me. I'm not great at that. And the problem is we have people like Typecraft and Aaron Francis, and the bar is so bloody high. I can do such a good quality content. Which actually love their content, but they set the bar so high. It's like I'm like, oh, my content is so shitty compared to what these guys can do. Uh, that's my biggest challenge, and also to explain things in a way which is easy to understand for people and easy to digest, and to not make. Sometimes it's because you know things you don't know that they are not obvious, and somebody else might not know the same things as you do. So sometimes when you write about something, you have this assumption like, oh yeah, that's obvious to me, so it's obvious to everybody, right? But it's not always the case. But this is why I had a few people who reviewed it and they told me that, like, oh yeah, I don't know what this thing is. Can you elaborate? So, and I'm sure I will still get some of those feedback even when I release everything, and I will need to do a few updates. But I think that's a bit of a challenge releasing courses. You probably need to do at least one kind of big update based on the feedback you get.
Now it's about show and tell segment. What do you have to show?
Well, I have to show. So we met at Rails World, right? Last year. So you know that I love to go to conferences. And I always try to convince people to go to conferences. Because for multiple reasons. One, you realize there are other humans in this community. For two, you have a good time. So I have a few pictures I want to show. Let's organize them by date. So this is, let me put on my camera on as well so I see what I show you. Oops, no. Yeah, like this. Okay. So this is the first ever Rails Earth, which was so much fun. My first ever
23 in Amsterdam.
Exactly, 2003 Amsterdam, my first ever big conference, 800 people, amazing, really well done. And then this is from last year's Rails World with different people. The good thing is all of these pictures I'm gonna show you, I think, is with different people because you meet with so many good guys. And then yeah, this is actually with my newsletter co-editor again from this year's Rails World. And they're a little dark, unfortunately. It wasn't this dark at the venue, but the pictures are really dark. Yes, and then this is Euroku with a different crowd,
I know most of the guys now.
and this is Under Fama, which we took with Adrian at the passport booth. Yes. So my thing with the show and tell is that go to conferences, meet other developers, build connections, get these stamps, and then in a few years we can look at our passport and just brag about, oh, do you remember how cool it was to go to that conference, and do you remember how much fun we had? It's just, I think it's the best part of the job. And I get a lot of questions from people. Oh, I struggled with finding work. How do you find work, or what should I do? I always say, go to conferences. It's when you send in your CV and somebody see the name and they are like, hey, wait a minute, I met this guy at one of the events I went to. You are immediately on the top of the pile for 100% sure. Or at the bottom if you made a bad impression. but hopefully you made a good impression and then you just get out of everybody because, oh, I know this person. And and also, I remember the first friendly which I went to last year. There were companies, and it's not just friendly, but you go to conference and then you realize, oh, companies are hiring people, but I never heard of these companies. They don't advertise. I don't see the job postings anywhere. But yet at the conferences, they say, hey, we are hiring. And if you're looking for work, just talk to us. So one of the best investment in your career can be to go to meetups, conferences, and let people in the community know you and then have a face to the name when they see your application.
What would be your advice for new developers or, like, say, people who like to be on stage like yourself and didn't have much experience, or but they want to go there for themselves, and also they hope they get a new gig, a new job, etc. Job. What do you advise them to do in terms of handling this kind of face-to-face communication, and how they present themselves where sometimes they don't have much qualification?
I think if you don't have the qualifications and experience, then maybe contracting is not for you. You should rather get a full-time job where you get mentorship. Because like in my work, I don't really learn much on the job from the other people. I usually don't even work with other people. I'm like on my own. But I don't really need to. I can learn on my own already because I'm at that stage in my career. But if you are in an early stage, it's much better to work in a team where you get feedback on your work and you can ask people when you struggle with something and you can learn much faster than on your own. And as for getting into the community and maybe even give talks, even if you're a junior, you can give a good talk because you can give people a fresh perspective on certain things, like how you are learning, or you can still go and dig into something and deeply and present a talk about it. You don't have to be like, I'm not super experienced with everything. I'm very experienced with certain things. And even with those things, which things I know a lot about now, I might not know a lot about the same thing in 5 years. But you can always dig into one thing which really excites you and then come up with something which is worthy to share, or which is worth to share with the rest of the community. And try to submit a conference talk, a lightning talk, because it's so much fun. I convinced one person to submit a talk, to go to give talks to conferences, and he did it this year at Friendly, and he did amazing. So I'm like, I told you, you should just try it and do it and share your knowledge and your experience because it's good for everybody. It's good for the whole community.
I remember you convinced me, or you encouraged me to submit to Rails World here in Toronto last year. And I did it. I was really skeptical about it. I said, I have nothing to, I don't know what to share. I have this kind of fear that you mentioned when you go on a stage. I had this in my head. I said, I'll get this going to happen, so I'm going to avoid that. But I built encourage and I submitted. I got rejected in it, but there's just a feeling to go through this first step to submit and be able, someone reviewing your application or your code or your, get over that. Say, oh, it's not that bad. Maybe next step, if it happened, accept it. Maybe go on the stage. It's not that bad as well.
Exactly. And rejection is part of the thing. I was rejected from the first Rails World. It's fine. It's part of the game. They had also, if you look at the Rails World, the talks, it's so competitive. They get so many good submissions. It's if they don't choose yours, it doesn't mean yours is bad. It just means that they have so many good ones. It's really hard to pick. So that shouldn't discourage anybody that you are rejected because they get so many good talks. It's hard to choose for them, I think.
Okay, now we'll go for rapid fire. You ready? I have about 10, 11 questions. Okay. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Biggest security myth in Rails?
in Rails, not just in Rails, in the whole world. UIDs don't require authorization.
Again, TOIDs again.
Yeah, that's the biggest misconception. They are not secure at all.
Most overrated security tool.
Most overrated security tool. I can't think of any, to be honest. Underrated, yeah, I can think of that, but overrated, not really, to be honest.
When jam
Antivirus, maybe, actually, sorry.
what is it again?
Antivirus on your computer, especially if you use Linux. And the Mac has some malware these days, but I think those are a bit overrated these days. Antivirus is not as necessary as it was years ago. On your personal PC, on the servers, I think you should still have it, but
Linux is safe and Mac somehow safe. Windows is not.
yeah, Windows is more targeted. It's just market cap. So Windows is the biggest on the market. It has the biggest market cap. So obviously they are the most targeted, and also the whole setup of the operating system allows more. It is more easy to write a malware for Windows than for, let's say, Linux.
One gem everybody should use but doesn't.
What jam everybody should use but doesn't? Actually, I'm surprised how many people don't use Brakeman and Bundler Audit as well. I think those two. I still find applications when they don't use neither of those.
Your most controversial opinion under 10 words.
Don't use UIDs for primary keys is one for sure. Other controversial opinion. Yeah, probably. Oh yeah, don't outsource your authentication. Some people also disagree with that one. Like don't use Okta and such. Roll your own authentication. And yeah, and DHH is a great public speaker, and we should have him on the stage. That's also controversial, according to some.
Especially recently. Okay. Real disappear tomorrow. What do you use?
Good question. I would just get some people and recreate Rails.
Fork Rails and start a new one.
Yes, exactly. Fork it if you can access the fork, or you can you have the source code somewhere in some of your apps installed on one of your machines and just revive it. But if it would completely disappear, probably just create something with the same concept.
Convention.
Yeah, MVC, convention over configuration in Ruby. Because we have Hanami, which is, I think it's probably also convention over configuration, but it's not really MVC. It is different. I looked into it, but I haven't used it. Just not my cup of tea.
Better for security, paranoia or ignorance?
Paranoia for sure. Ignorance is not good for security.
One security book everyone should read.
Ah, that is a really good one, but I don't know the title from the top of my head.
Is it your book?
No. But everybody should read, but nobody's gonna read it because nobody's gonna get through the first 20 pages that dense. It's like a really dense book. I don't recall the title. I don't remember the title of that book. But yeah, that's the one. If you are like into security, that's the one everybody should read.
You learn
But yeah,
about
I
this
don't
book
remember the
during
title.
your certification. You learn
Pardon?
about this book during your certification OSSP?
No. Even before that, at that consultancy, somebody recommended it to me, and he also told me this is the book everybody should read, but they don't get through the first 100 pages.
So this, I imagine, was written in 90s or 80s?
No. It's not that old. It's probably like 2010-ish or something. And I have that book. I don't not in a hard copy, but I have that in ebook. I think it's application security or something. But for like if you are interested in web, then there is a one called the Web Application Hackers Handbook. I think that's the title. That's a really good one for web-related exploits.
Your biggest security mistake?
My biggest security mistake. Not really security, but safety. Once I had data loss. So I had backups on a server which I was operating, and the way the backups was set up is if it fails, I get a notification, and then the hard drive in the actual physical server died. So I got the alert from the company which I rented it from. They said, yeah, we need to replace the hard drive. It's completely gone, and we will do it, and then you can restore from your backups. I'm like, okay, cool. I go and look at my backups. Last backup was 6 months ago because and I learned my lesson. You need a notification every day when it's successful because it didn't reach the point of failure. It didn't reach the point of failure when it should have sent me the email about the failure. And from then on, I'm like, the backups, I need to get the notification every day that it's successful. And if I don't get it, I know something is up and I need to look into the backup because it doesn't work anymore. And yeah, I completely lost like 6 months worth of data from that server.
Were you able to recover any of it? Like you have to write it again?
No, I wasn't able to recover it at all. Emails lost, orders lost, but it was for a company and they couldn't restore the data, but the important stuff they had it in other sources. They exported orders regularly and stuff like that, and customer information was all exported. But the biggest loss was the emails. They also had the same server had an email server, and they lost 6 months worth of emails. They had some of those were also downloaded to clients, but still.
Hero in the security world.
Hero. Oh yeah, President Beef in the Rails world. He's an amazing guy. He did Brakeman, he did Beef, which is the browser exploitation framework, and maybe he did some other projects as well. But he's a really good person to have in the community.
Have you met him in any Rails world?
No, I don't even. I know. I don't even know if his real name, his actual name, from the top of my head. But I never met him. I don't think he goes to conferences anymore. But maybe I will meet him one day. Who knows?
It'll be awesome to meet your hero one day.
Yep.
Coffee or tea while reviewing code?
Tea. I don't drink coffee. I drink tea only.
Never drink coffee before.
I drink. Yeah, I used to drink coffee, but I don't drink for years. I drink it occasionally. I drink once in a while, but not daily.
Why are you switching? What caused this?
I read a book about sleep and how caffeine messes up your sleep, and I thought I'm gonna give it a try. And also how when you drink your morning coffee, it doesn't give you a kick. It just sets you to normal. Before your coffee, you are kind of like in a negative state. You are like at the minus brain state, and when you drink the coffee, it just sets it to zero. And if you quit coffee, you wake up at zero every morning. You don't need the coffee to get it to zero. And now, if I drink coffee, it feels like I'm on drugs. It's not.
A book written by Matthew Walker.
That's the one. Yes.
Last question. Tabs or spaces?
Spaces, two spaces. But I don't care actually. I don't mind. I'm not fussy about things like that. Single quotes, double quotes, I don't care. Use whatever you want.
If you work on an application and it was indented in 4 or 3 or 6 spaces, what would you do? You have to change that first before you start work on it? Would that agitate you first?
No, but I would probably change it in the files which I work in, and then eventually it will be all changed. But I wouldn't go through the whole code base and just change it for the sake of changing. It doesn't make sense.
But if that's the way they do it in the application, for example, the company, they like it at the 3 or 4 or 6 spaces. You change it to your liking and you say, this is the way it should be. This is more
I
secure.
don't I don't think there is anybody who intends by three spaces. I can't imagine that. Two or four, that's fine, or a tab. And then I don't care. It's fine. It's readable still. I prefer two spaces, but I can read whatever I need to read, to be honest.
Someone listening to this, they are in a year into Rails and they are thinking, security sounds cool. What is the first step?
Hmm. I think the first step, which I would recommend to anybody, and I recommend this to, I get this question a few times, is to find something which is free to dabble into security and see if you actually like it and it interests you. And for that one, there is a really good resource called Burp Academy or Portswigger Academy. I'm not sure what's the actual name. So there's a company called Portswigger, and they create a tool which is called the Burp proxy, which is a tool a lot of penetration testers use. It's an interception proxy, and they also have this completely free Burp Academy where you can learn about web vulnerabilities, and they also have labs, so you can actually try to exploit certain things, and that's a good free way to get your feet wet and see if you actually like this whole space. And then from then on, you can either go to hack the box and get a certification or offensive security. And then also you need to decide if you want to do blue teaming, red teaming, do you want to become a penetration tester or an auditor. The security space is so massive.
Go back again. What do you mean by blue teaming, red teaming?
Yes, so red teaming is what I do mostly is penetration testing. So it's the attacker side where you attack, and by the attacks you discover what you need to fix. And the blue team is the people who defend. So it's more like monitoring suspicious requests and act on those suspicious requests and make sure when somebody's trying to hack you, then there are traps and you can track it back to the actual person who did it. It's more like defense. But those are just the two bigger sides. In the red teaming, and the red side is also social engineering, which is completely different from penetration testing. There's penetration testing, there's physical penetration testing, there is mobile, there is network, there is IoT, SCADA, so many things.
It's a big word.
Yes.
What should they know about the unsexy part of security work?
Oh, report writing is not really sexy. Scoping is not sexy for a lot of people. Yeah, it's just also the business side of it, like giving estimations, quotes.
You went from developer to security expert. Someone considering that pivot, what is the real cost?
Uh, well, it depends. So if you're a senior engineer and you want to switch to security, it's not easy because you will likely, and in employment, you will likely end up with a pay cut because you will make less for a period. So that's one thing where it's a cost. Also, it's time because you need to learn about security while you are doing your day job. You probably. Uh, so those are the two. But the learning, I think it's a good investment. Even if you never transition completely, and you apply for a job, and you can put on your CV that you also have experience with security, and even if you have a certification or whatever, that always puts you on the higher on the list than somebody who doesn't have, who only has race experience.
Had a certification ever actually land you a client?
Um, I don't think it actually landed me a client, but most clients actually kind of require that. For instance, if you need a penetration test for compliance, they usually want the penetration test to be done by someone who has some sort of a certification. Otherwise, how could you know that that person actually knows how to carry out a proper penetration test? Because that's the thing with penetration testing. With programming, you ask someone to create an application. Then you get the application, you can verify, yeah, it works, it's fine. With the penetration test, I give you a report at the end of the test, and you don't even know if I did any work. It's not always, it's not like, it's even harder to materialize than code. Because at code, you have the code is the end result, so you can see something. With a penetration test, the work is done, but maybe you get a report with one issue and you're like, oh, but you spent 5 days and you only gave me like this one thing, which you might still sweat blood and did a bunch of things because it's a very secure app and you can't find anything, which is actually good news for the client, but still they don't know if they were bullshitted or that's the actual reality. I think that's why certification helps, because that kind of validates that you know what you are doing.
What kind of client is the best fit for your services?
Any kind of client, to be honest. If you want to increase your security posture or you need a penetration test for compliance, then it doesn't matter, small, big, whatever. I work with various sizes, various age, like old companies, new companies, young companies, not really with startups, to be honest. Actually, I had some startups where I was talking to them about the things, but once they heard the cost and the requirements, they were like, oh no, we are not ready for this, which is fine. I think they shouldn't even be worrying about this until they make enough money.
So the reason that they didn't work with you was the cost.
Yes.
So most of your clients should have a big budget, have a big fat
It's not
big
I wouldn't
count.
say it's a big budget, but if you don't make any money, then everything is a big budget, right? So if you make $200 a month from your startup, then you can't pay $5,000 for a weekly penetration test. You can, but you're gonna go bankrupt. You need a loan. So it's not a massive budget. There are companies who charge way more, actually.
Greg has been incredible, taking us from HV trauma, Island live, breaking Rails app. Thanks so much for joining me on the Expert Punch.
Thanks for having me and good luck with Rails Expert.